A Chinese reliant robin. Look at that. Look at that piece of crap. So a very good afternoon, one and all. This is Eye of the Biker reporting once again from Beijing, Beijing. So yeah, apologies for the lack of vlogging over the past couple of weeks. Just been a combination of a bit busy. Weather's been absolutely atrocious. Just been raining a huge amount here in Beijing. Funny thing is about Beijing is all the rain just seems to fall, like all the rain for the entire year just seems to fall in 1 month. That is this month, June. So as a result, we've had an insane amount of rain in the past 2 weeks. I haven't been on my bike very much, so I do apologise. Absolutely hate riding around in rain. I suppose I could, but you know, do I really want to get soaked? Do I really want to get drenched, etc., etc.? Not really. I mean, I could get waterproof overalls, but meh. Just rather avoid riding around in the rain altogether. Anyway. That brings us on to our topic today, which is the weather here in Beijing. Now I'm sure it's something which some of you might be interested in. What is the weather like here in Beijing? Well, I used to live in London, which is extremely sort of moderate in terms of its climate. You know, the winters go down to, you know, at the very coldest, maybe -5 degrees Celsius, and the very sort of warmest, you know, very, very nice, sort of, well, very warm summer's day, that'll be, you know, what, good 30 degrees Celsius. Beijing is not like that. Beijing is extreme in its weather patterns. And I don't mean, you know, I don't mean we have hurricanes or typhoons and tornadoes and all that bajazz. What I mean is Beijing's weather goes from extremely cold in the winter to extremely warm in the summers. Let me just deal with these cars over here. So in the winter it goes down to, you know, last year the coldest temperature recorded was -20 degrees Celsius. That's extremely cold, by the way. Really, really cold. -20 degrees Celsius. And you know, the past few days it's been extremely warm. Today's a bit of an exception. Today's a really nice sort of overcast day. You know, it goes up to pretty much close to 40 degrees Celsius. So you've got a spread there of about 60 degrees Celsius from the very coldest temperatures in the middle of winter, in the dark of winter, to the very warmest temperatures in summer of about 60 degrees Celsius. That's a massive, massive spread. Compare that with London, where, you know, the spread is much closer to, like, what, 35 degrees Celsius. It's almost twice the spread. The delta, if you like, of temperatures is almost twice as much here in Beijing as it is in London. So yeah, that's the thing with Beijing. Sometimes it just becomes extremely difficult to figure out exactly what you should be wearing, especially during sort of spring and autumn, because, you know, if you're out for the entire day, you know, the low could be -10 maybe, and the high could be 15, and you know what you'd be wearing -10 and +15, two completely different sets of attire. That's the weather here in Beijing. And another thing about Beijing, which you know, a lot of people on the internet and in sort of news agencies obviously as well talk about, is the pollution here in Beijing, and indeed sort of wider China, but you know, specifically here in Beijing, you know, just because it's the capital, it's symbolic of, you know, and representative of a lot of China. The pollution here in Beijing varies from extremes as well. You've got the weather that sort of fluctuates between extremes, and likewise you've got pollution that varies between extremes here as well. So today is actually pretty good pollution-wise, as you can tell. It's a blue sky day. It's probably the third blue sky day we've had in a row here in Beijing, and that's it's a rarity, bit of a rarity to have 3 consecutive blue sky days. As I mentioned, pollution in Beijing varies between extremes. On bad days, you'd struggle basically to see almost maybe 5 car lengths ahead of you. That would be a really, really apocalyptically sort of bad day pollution-wise. But that has happened in the past. It has happened it happened in January, where just looking 5 car lengths in front of you, fucking hell, is a real struggle, and it makes everything extremely dangerous. The air becomes unbreathable, pretty much. But on good days, it's as clear as anywhere else in the world. I mean, it's quite rare to actually have an extremely clear day pollution-wise, but it does happen. And yeah, today wouldn't be very far off that. Today would be pretty close to one of those near perfect days pollution-wise here in Beijing. Things which you can do about sort of the pollution, well, at home, get yourself an air purifier. They're not cheap, good air purifiers. They tend to be really, really expensive pieces of kit. So, my air purifier, which is a Blue Air, shameless plug right now, Blue Air 203E, I bought for, what was it? Close to 3,000 kwai, which is what, 300 quid, basically. 300 pounds in Queen's English. And the replacement filters, which you need to change every sort of 6 months or so, cost what? I think it was 400 quid each, or 40 pounds each. So not cheap things. They're certainly sort of investments, rather than expenses. They are, or maybe a really expensive expense. At home, get yourself an air purifier. And my air purifier, it's not a big air purifier. It's one of those air purifiers which you get for maybe a 200 square foot room, or 20 square meters ish. It's not a big room. It's just basically for my bedroom and not much else. That's all it's rated for. The big air purifiers cost much more, obviously. A really big one I know a friend uses for his living room, set him back good 4,000 renminbi, 4,000 kwai. 400 quid just for an air purifier. And his replacement filters, the replacement filters actually are pretty much the same in terms of pricing across the range, but it's the initial sort of investment and outlay which big difference. What can you do to protect yourself when you're outside? Well, the obvious thing would be to get a mask, an air mask. 3M. Oh, this bit of road is atrocious. Roadworks. 3M makes some pretty good masks, which you can buy. They're pretty cheap, but I don't like them because I find them extremely uncomfortable. They don't fit my head very well, and I don't get a very good seal with those masks. So I use something called Toto Bobo, and I'll put a link to their website over here right now. Toto Bobo, they're pretty good air filters. I like them. They fit me pretty well. They're customizable in the sense that you can cut the edges of the filter to get them to fit properly, and apparently they work for kids down to 8 years of age in terms of getting the right fit. Getting the right fit on an air filter, or an air mask rather, is so important, because without the right fit, basically you're just letting all that gunk seep through the sides. in which case you might as well not be wearing a mask in the first place. You know, a lot of people. Whoa! I should have gone left over there. A lot of people wear a mask which just doesn't fit them at all, and it gives sort of, I suppose it gives you a bit of psychological comfort that you are sort of maybe breathing in slightly cleaner air than you otherwise would without a mask, and probably does actually do a bit, probably has a little bit of an effect, but you know, not very much, I can't imagine. If you don't get a good seal around the edges of your mask. That's my ramble on Beijing's weather and weather patterns, and Beijing's, or the pollution rather, in Beijing. If you're coming to Beijing, make sure you've got an adequate number of clothes for the extreme cold and the extreme heat. At least if you're coming here for an extended period of time. And get yourself an air purifier and a mask to deal with pollution. You don't need the mask. You don't really need the mask on a day like this today, but it's useful when things get pretty ugly. So that's me signing out. Until next time.